Hey, what's up guys? Sam here from H's Media TV on YouTube. In today's quick tutorial I will show you how to work more time efficient and of course become more professional in After Effects using expression controls. If you never heard about expression controls before, don't panic, I will explain that in a couple of seconds. After that I will then give you a short overview about different types of expression controls. I will show you how to apply them and of course show you some problems that may appear. And finally I will talk about the pros and cons of using expression controls. So what are expression controls? Well, for this I will use just a standard scenario with a client. So let's pretend you have a client that wants you to make an intro for him, and you did your first version, you uploaded a preview file, and your client likes it, but he tells you to maybe change the color, change the opacity for some objects, maybe change the rotation, or just do some minor changes on your project. If you now imagine or think about that you have a project with, I don't know, let's say 200 layers, you really have to go through each individual layer to change the color, change the rotation, so it really takes forever to make this change. And now let's go a step further and say you've done all changes and upload a second preview file to your client, and then he says maybe like, I don't like this color now, I want a third color version, so maybe I don't like blue, I want green. Or I don't like this rotation too, I want a third version of a rotation. And now you have to go again through all individual layers to make some changes. If you would have used expression controls from the beginning, you could have done all these changes within just a few seconds. And the second example is if you want to sell stuff like I do on Video Hive or Pond5 or I don't know, some stock footage pages. You always want to offer great templates which are easy to customize. So because you don't want to have your customers spend the next couple of days figuring out how to customize your template. If you use expression controls, you can make all these changes very easy for them, because very often a lot of users or buyers aren't experienced users, so they want it to be as easy as possible. Okay, so now I think you have maybe a better impression what expression controls are, so I think now we are able to start explaining the different versions of it. For that I create an adjustment layer. I would always recommend that you apply expression controls to an adjustment layer. So layer, new adjustment layer. I always call my adjustment layers, for example, customize control or color control or whatever you like. Let's call it customize because I already have a customized control layer. And then go to your effects and presets panel right here and type in control. And as you can see, there are numerous expression controls, so I will now select all of them and apply them to my adjustment layer. To be honest, I never really used 3D point control. I don't know what it's good for. Maybe it's for animating an object in 3D space. Like I said, I never used it before, so I will delete that. Angle control, of course, is used to adjust the angle, for example, for a camera or for an object. So you can, for example, connect your camera to this angle control and you can always change the angle of your camera or for different objects. Then you have your checkbox control. It's, for example, to make objects appear and disappear. I will show that later on this example right here. Then of course you have your color control. I've already made a video about that a couple of weeks ago. It's just used to change the color for your background, for your font, for your images, objects, whatever. Then you have layer control. To be honest, I also never used this before, so I don't know what it's good for. So just delete it. Then you have your point control. It's great for animating the position or change the position of objects, camera and whatever. And then you have slider control. It's perfect for adjusting values like opacity, thickness of, for example, this image frame right here. So just to make changes to all values in After Effects. By the way, you can really connect every single adjustment for an effect to an expression control, so you can really make very detailed changes. Okay, so I think that's enough for the basic introduction. I will now show you a short example of how I use expression controls in my projects. To be honest, the only expression controls I use are color control, checkbox control and slider control. It's not that point control or angle control are not important, but yeah, like I said, I always use checkbox, color and slider control. So let's delete this layer for the moment and go to my customized control. Okay, so as you can see, I have numerous expressions applied to this effect, or this adjustment layer, sorry. There isn't any color effect, so sorry for that. I will maybe explain that later, or just check out my previous tutorial about that. So the first couple of expression controls are slider controls. For example, this one here is for the shaky cam handheld effect. Then I have my camera depth of field, so it's just these blurry edges in the corners. So if you uncheck it, it disappears, and if you check it, it's there. Then of course we have light flicker, on and off. And of course you have light flicker opacity. So for example, let's say you want to make that 100, or you want to make that 10. Then you have also the lights flicker, so you have the flicker frequency, the flicker amount. Then you have the drop shadows. So yeah, as you can see, I think it's always the same. You can use these expression controls, like I said before, for nearly everything in your project, reaching from the wiggle expression for camera shake to different layers. And one cool thing I want to show you is, again, the checkbox, you can also, for example, connect different backgrounds, so your customer can change the backgrounds very easily. So for example, you don't like this dark wood texture, so uncheck it. And for example, you want, let's say, a paper texture. Or you want, for example, a old wood background. It's actually very easy to change everything. Okay, so now I will show you how to work with expression controls. So therefore, create a new adjustment layer again. And for example, apply a slider control. Okay. If you never used expressions before, you always activate your expressions by pressing Alt on your keyboard and click this stopwatch right here. It really doesn't matter if you want to use expressions, so codes like wiggle or type in cycle or stuff like that, or expression controls. You always activate expressions by alt-clicking this stopwatch right here. And yeah, as you can see, there's now a window popping up, so if you're confused, don't worry, you don't have to really know what to type in there, so just click on the left side. And then, for example, let's say you have a new object, so let's just create a simple shape, maybe just this triangle right here. And let's pretend you want to change, or you want to make the opacity changeable. So hit T for opacity, alt-click this stopwatch right here. And then use this pick whip tool right here. It's this, I don't know how it's called, in this trolley thing right here in English. I don't know how it's called. Click and drag it to your slider. Okay. And yeah, as you can see, the value now becomes 0 because the slider is also set to 0. And if you now want to change the opacity, you just go to your adjustment layer, slider control, and for example, type in, I don't know, 75 for example. By the way, it's always the same steps for all different expression controls. So you always alt-click your expression control, always alt-click your effect or your layer, for example, opacity, position, color, whatever, and then pick whip this effect to your expression control. There are two more things I want to mention which are a bit more tricky if you use it for the first time. So let's delete our slider control and apply, let's apply a checkbox control, because let's pretend we want to make our triangle right here disappear or appear how we want it. So alt click this checkbox right here and then use this pick whip tool again to pick whip it to your checkbox and then click OK. So as you can see, our checkbox is now deactivated, so it's not visible. If you now check it, you can see that it's still not visible, and the reason for that is, if you look at opacity, checkbox is always only 0 and 1, so you have just 1% opacity. So I will show you now how you can fix that. It's actually very easy. You just go into this text field right here to the end and type in multiply by 100. So by that you take the value of 1 and multiply it by 100. By the way, you can also apply, for example, 75 if you want it to be less opaque or more transparent. And then you can always check and uncheck this element right here. The next problem I want to mention is the same as in my color expression tutorial. So for the moment, let's pretend that we now have our animation and everything connected, and now we want to clean up our main composition. So we want to pre-comp this shape layer. So go to composition, layer, pre-compose, or shift Control C, call it, I don't know, triangle, click OK. And now there's a warning popping up that this expression control couldn't find an effect, or the effect couldn't find this adjustment layer. So just click OK for the moment. And as you can see, our transparency is now set back to default, but you can easily correct that if you, let's just make this bigger, then go to your triangle comp, drag this to the bottom of your program, then again hit T for opacity, alt click it, and then, let's go to final and pick up it again to your checkbox. Then of course type in multiplied by 75 or by 100. And if you now close it and go back to your final or to your main composition, it's activated again, so you now can easily uncheck or check it. The last thing I want to show you is maybe how to combine different expressions or various expressions with expression controls. So for the moment, let's create a new camera, for example, or not a camera. Let's keep our triangle and hit P for position. Alt click this position and type in wiggle. These things, I don't know how these are called in English, so sorry for that. Maybe 1, 10. Close it and then hit enter. If you don't know what this wiggle expression does, it basically randomly animates this object. So if you now, let's make it really, as you can see, it starts to shake. You can also make it a bit more dramatic. So for example, 10. And as you can see, this object is now animating through the space randomly. Okay, so now let's pretend that we want to control these two values here using an expression. So go back to our adjustment layer and apply a slider control, duplicate it, alt click both of them, maybe call the first one frequency and the second one amount, and then go back to our triangle position to the first value, delete it, and then pick up this number or this position in the text to our first slider. As you can see, After Effects creates text automatically. Sorry, that was my mobile phone. I don't know if you could hear it. Then go to the second value and do the same. So pick up that to our amount slider, hit enter, and now close everything. And as you can see, our values are now set to 0, so our triangle stays in the same position. But now let's, for example, increase the frequency and the amount. So now it's really bouncing around. So yeah, that's a great way, for example, to control camera shake. That's what I always use for my Video Hive projects. Create a camera and adjust the wiggle expression to 2 slider controls. Okay, so now after watching this tutorial, some of you may say that this will take longer than before using the method without expression controls. So I will now talk a bit about the pros and cons of using this expression control method. The downside, of course, is that the creation process will take a bit longer because you have to connect each individual effect to your expression control adjustment layer. But I think that's only in the beginning if you work on the first couple of projects, because if you use it more often for all type of projects, it will become second nature. I now work very quick using expression controls because, like I said, it became second nature. It's really very easy for me to to work with these expressions. And the pros, like I said in the beginning with the two examples, are definitely if you want to make changes after finishing your project or your first idea maybe. So in my opinion, the pros are way more important than the cons. It's up on you to decide if you want to use this method. Just once again, for me it was one of the greatest discoveries I've made so far in After Effects. It really helped me or my work, and I think I now work a lot more professional than before. So yeah, I really hope, or I really recommend you to use expression controls, but like I said, it's up on you to decide. So now, before I finish this video, I will also make a couple of announcements. The first one is that I started posting more stuff on my Facebook page because I was very inactive the last couple of weeks. But yeah, now I started uploading Photoshop art. I don't know if all of you know that I'm also a photographer and a Photoshop artist. So I will always upload some behind the scenes footage, some making of images. I will share my artwork. I will also, of course, provide tutorials. I will provide help. So it would be really great. I would really appreciate it if you would just take some seconds, check out my Facebook page, and of course leave a like to never miss a post or a new video. And the next thing is that I now managed to get Photoshop in English, so I will also post a lot of Photoshop tutorials in the near future. The first one is about creating the Skyfall poster. If you don't know what I mean, just go to Google, type in Skyfall, or check my Facebook page for the final image. And the last thing I want to say is that because of a lot of requests I received from you guys, I now decided to make 2 more news intro tutorials. And the first one is about number 3 and the second is about number 4. So I will show you how to create the spheres with the images. I will show you how to create this glass cylinder and more. So really, there's great stuff coming, so please stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, share my stuff, and yeah, like always, I hope I see you next time. Stay creative, have fun.